This is millet. This is one of the big grains that grows naturally in Africa, and has always been one of their natural grains there. Indigenous. It's very similarly related to sorghum, which is another one of the important indigenous grains of Africa. And I'll get a spoonful. You see these little round balls. They're the size of a lot of different types of couscous. And this is kind of what couscous was based on. Fresh as it gets. So these are just getting a rough chop because they're going in the food process. Always nice to clean as you go. Don't like where that water is situated right now. Keep poking it with my knife. Alright. Give these little dice. You go through the processor easy. Okay. Just making sure you guys have a good view and I'm not doing all the cutting myself and making you guys miss out on the action. Alright. Nice dice there, pretty consistent. Even though it's going in the food processor, I'm happy with that. Always got to be working on those skills. This is the other part that's difficult when you have like a very freshly sharpened knife, is just scraping stuff off the board. It still wants to like go right into the cutting board, which that's great, that's what you want. That means your blade is not going to slide around when you're cutting stuff, which is both dangerous and gives you poor results. Okay, we have, let me just move this that I'm not using it off. Alright, we've got 110 on onion. Let's see. Alright, so that's starting to look pretty good. I think I'm going to stir this just a little bit, but I'll give you guys a view of it. I'm going to stir it just a little bit and give it maybe 5 more minutes there. Because you can see the bottom has cooked more than the top. I'm going to want this at a lower thing, and we're just going to simmer this tomato sauce that we made earlier, which the millet will go into to make our basi salty. And eventually I'm going to want that to reduce, but one little trick about cooking something that's kind of thick like that you're going to simmer, is it can help to start with a little bit more water so that things kind of cook evenly to begin with. That's probably good. And if they cook evenly to begin with, you just have an easier time of it along the way. Alright, that looks much better. Alright, so we've got our powder here ready for the mafe sauce when we get over to that. So whenever I cook, I like to go prep heavy on the front end, and that just makes everything come together easier, because always the most stressful part of any dish, and I'm just going to put some bay leaves here into the tomato sauce. Bay leaves are one of those things I've never actually paid for because they grow really well in a lot of places. So these are just foraged from my local area. I think they were next to a You see, you just get this sort of paste there. So I'm going to rub this on the inside of the fish. It'll just kind of give it an aroma. And because it's on the inside of the fish, it will be separate from the rest of the things going on in the dish and give us a nice kind of contrast. Alright, so should be plenty. Get 1 garlic clove. I'm gonna zest off the lime here. So you get in Senegal, on the southern part of Senegal, after the climate changes entirely from the Sahara Desert, you get these tropical areas with mangroves and a lot of these tropical fruits and stuff. So Senegalese cuisine has this really interesting mix between tropical wet weather ingredients and sort of desert dry weather ingredients, which is pretty cool. Okay, so last I'll be using nutmeg. In Western Africa, they would actually be using a different ingredient that has a very similar flavor to nutmeg. In fact, it's also often called calabash nutmeg. And I'm struggling to remember what its proper name is, but it looks like a giant bean, but instead I'll be using some nutmeg, which will make this smell pretty delicious. So sometimes different ingredients have really similar flavors or tones to them, and that's because they'll have the same type of compound that the plant grows. A really good example of this is anise, which you will find that same flavor in licorice, or in a plant called anise, or a different plant called star anise, which is not related. In fact, I think all three of those are not related to each other. But because they all grow the same compound, they have really similar flavor to each other. Or at least one part of their flavor is similar to each other. Give that a quick mix. Okay, so 2 different types of fish today. First up, I will take care of this whole fish. This is a tilapia. The important thing I'm going to want to do here is cut out the gills, which they didn't do. They scaled it though, which is nice. Scaling is definitely more of a pain in the ass. As much as possible, you want to keep fish dry. When you start to get it wet is when you start to get those off flavors and you get bacteria growing. If you can keep fish cold but dry, you're going to do a lot better, and your flavors will just be nicer overall, which kind of goes against the conventional thoughts on that. Okay, so there's one gill. And you can tell I'm not super practiced about cutting out gills. Something I haven't done in a while. But we'll get it done. Most important thing is to not cut myself while I'm doing it. Would not be fun for anybody. A lot of times you'd use some like sharp scissors just to cut these out, which I could have done, but I didn't bring any. Okay, so there's the other part of the gill. Those will go in the trash. And the tail is already trimmed. Okay, so what I'm gonna do on this is putting 3 slices on each side, and I don't want them to go all the way through. I just want, so that one went a little bit further than I wanted, but we'll learn for the next one. And these will help it out while it's cooking to score, plus it gets that really nice classic look. Alright, so from here I'll open it up and open up this cavity a little bit more. They didn't open that up fully. And I'm just going to rub this paste on the inside so that when it cooks, it gets kind of nice and perfumed. You think you'll be very healthy if you eat this? Yeah, probably. Everything here is, made from scratch. I'm not using any processed ingredients, and it's all stuff that's pretty good for you. This is definitely something I would eat day to day, or at least the base ingredients. Okay, so that one is prepped for now. We'll move on to our other fish dish once I clean this up. And I'll put this, I've got a cooler with ice here, just to keep everything cool. Which, frankly, I should have done before I did this part, but, you do things and then you learn better ways to do them along the way. Figuring things out is kind of always the best way to go. Knives are sharp, now we cook. Hey, welcome back, Radical. Thanks for making it in. We are making Senegalese food today, and we're about to make a mixture for fish balls. We just prepped a whole fish that we'll fry later. And so we're gonna make a mixture for the fish balls. Put all this off to the side. And I'm setting this off to the side because I'm pretty sure I don't want a full onion. About half or maybe even a little less than half might do it. In fact, I'll peel off 2 layers here instead of 1, and that will make a pretty good amount. Get my scale ready, and got onions, garlic, green onion, parsley, and then we'll get to the spices when we get to the spices. Give this a dice. I want a fine dice on this one because it's going to be mixed up with all the fish and stuff. So those small pieces, so we don't have giant pieces of onion in our fried fish. Alright, so I've got 2 fillets of fish. Yeah, it looks about right. And I'm gonna run through this just one more time so we have some even smaller pieces. Okay, zero out my scale. And 22 grams. Oh no, 25 grams. Okay, so 25 grams of onion. Same thing with the garlic. Small slices. Sounds fancy. We try to do fancy things around here. Alright, 5 grams of garlic. Green onions next. These pieces are a little bit wilted, and I want mostly the green part since I'm not going to be using a ton of this. And then, like the rest, just want to give it a second pass through. It's actually going to want it more. Okay, and 5 grams of green onion. Alright, so we have all the alliums in. Those are going to be 25, 5, 5. We'll get a little bit of parsley. Cooking metric is super easy, which is why I do it. I'm from America, and I still cook metric because it just makes my life a ton easier. I originally started cooking metric when I went on a diet and I had to measure everything that I was eating. So I started using metric for that. Just because I wasn't used to measuring everything, using metric made it a ton easier, and I've never gone back because measuring everything out as I cook gives me more feedback as I cook, which makes me a better cook overall because I know what to adjust as I eat. I know, okay, next time I make this, I'm going to use maybe half again as much onion or whatever it is, and I already have those measurements. I know what they are. And using metric is great because it's always consistent. I can use grams for everything. In fact, I do. So I have one metric that I'm comparing things against, as opposed to teaspoons, tablespoons, pounds, which are all measuring different things. Okay, so throw garlic or parsley in there. 5 grams of that. Okay, so that worked out pretty well. We have 5 grams of everything and 25 grams of the other thing, onion. As much moisture as I can out of this because I'm going to be frying it, and that will just make my job more difficult if there's extra moisture in it. So the first thing I'm going to do is just press them with these paper towels. Okay, so that one's pretty good. Check for any bones here. No, those are pretty good. So the reason I want the as much moisture as I can out of these is because I want that fish to reabsorb that moisture when I use the egg as the binder to keep this all together. And I'll also be putting a little bit of flour in there. So I want as much moisture out so that when it takes it back in, it wants to stick together and it won't fall apart in my pan. Yeah, guys, I also like where this is going. That explains why the last time you tried to wash and bread something, it rolled right off. Exactly. I am so wise in the ways of science because food science is really cool, and I like learning about it. At the end of the stream, when when we have some time to simmer something, I will go and grab a book that I would recommend for food science. It's super easy to read, unlike a lot of other books on food science, but it'll give you a really good picture of how different things interact in a dish. For my money, and I say for my money because I bought it, it is the best book on food science out there. And I give this just a little bit more water so that it's not, it's a little bit more though. I don't want this to start burning over here, this tomato sauce, but it is reducing very nicely. I'll give you guys a look after we finish up with this fish. Okay, so these are pretty dry now. I'm going to turn my scale back on, and I'll probably need to do it again because I always forget how quickly this goes. And I'm just going to start chopping this fish. It doesn't need to be super small. But try and keep it kind of small so that it can come together pretty nicely. And I hope you guys are getting a good view of that. And mostly I want to make sure that there's not any real big connective tissue, like holding too much stuff together. Alright, so down the hatch. Give you guys a quick thing of, I was never a sushi chef, but I was around them long enough to learn how they do it. Go. Sort of like that. This one's not holding together real well. This was previously frozen cod, but that's the idea. And you try and always do it in one smooth motion so that you get like a nice side. But we're not making sushi, so I'm gonna just run through this with a knife. The entire thing, in fact, the entire thing looks like it would be far too much. So I'm just gonna give this a good mix. And just like the flour, we're gonna add just a bit at a time. And let me take this out, so I'm not measuring it every time I put it in and out. Okay, so start off with like 15 grams of it. Okay, so for quick measurements, your average egg weighs about 50 grams. Just a normal large size egg will always be in the range of about 50 grams. And they rate them by size, so you can pretty much always count on a large size egg being 50 grams. I don't remember the other sizes off the top of my head. I pretty much am always using large size eggs because I have consistent results with them. So if you ever have an egg and you don't want to measure it, you can just put in 50 grams and you'll average out to being pretty much right. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. We should be able to shape balls with those. So we'll go 15 grams. And then we'll start shaping these fish. This will pretty much be the last bit of prep. And then we'll just get into the cooking and the eating part. And I'll hang out and answer any questions you guys have. We'll find somebody to raid at the end. Okay, so having my hands a bit wet will help me shape these. And because I'm not going to do a deep fat fry, I'm going to do a shallow fry. I kind of want them to be shaped less like a ball and more like kind of a puck. Alright, so I'll shape them like that. I also need something to put them on when they're done. Okay, so I'm going to pack these pretty tight so they're not falling apart. Just drop in the flour, flip it. Give it a quick little dredge. Okay, so, and these will rest for a little bit so that they'll kind of come together more. And hopefully they won't fall fall apart too much when we get to the cooking stage, but we'll find out how they go. If you want them to be more solid, if you actually ran the fish, or at least part of the fish, I wouldn't do all of it. If you ran part of the fish through a processor, through a food processor, or a little spice grinder, it would make it really gluey, which you can use to bind the fish together. And that's a technique that comes up in a lot of like charcuterie, or if you're making pâtés, mousses, things like that, is just grinding part of the meat to make it stick together. It's the same thing that they do for sausages. You get a protein called myosin, which comes out more as the protein is worked more, which binds it together stiffer. So if we do these and they're not coming out really well, today we'll just deal with it, but if I make it again, I'll be modifying my process in that way. And this is sort of just how you learn those things, is try things differently. Let me wet my hands again. Trying things differently so we can see the results. And seeing those different results of how you do it differently is kind of how you learn things. Yeah, so right now these are feeling just a little bit soft, but I think they'll be all right. But there's also that lime and that nutmeg and ginger that we grated. So it's all these nice kind of like spicy flavors on the nose. Sort of citrusy. I'm always handsome. I try. I also keep my hair like really manageable because I'm fucking lazy about doing hair or anything like that. So I just go for styles that are really easy to take care of. I'm also not good at fashion, so I pick clothes that are always plain. And that's my secret, is just being super low maintenance. We'll make book recommendations a normal thing here, because I never worked in a place where mentorship was a big part of the program, so I was always learning stuff on my own, doing my own research. Which turned me into a big reader, even though reading skill-wise, I'm pretty poor because I'm like really dyslexic. So reading's not real easy for me, but I get a lot of good stuff out of it. Okay, so this book is called Ingredient. The author is upside down, Ali Ozari. And this is a really cool book. I'll take a quick look through it with you guys. So, what this book does, which is really smart, is this is upside down for you guys. It explains how these different elements in food work. And then you can, when you cook, you just think about these elements and how they interact with each other. So they're water, sugars, carbohydrates, lipids, also known as fats, proteins, minerals, gases, and heat. And as these interact, they do different things. So if you think about how those are, what's happening with them while you cook, you'll understand basically what the physics of your food is. And it's got different examples of where you'll find those elements in food. So that is a very cool book. I hope that helps one of you guys. Book again is called Ingredient, and it's by Ali Bozari. Out of the pan. So just in case we have extra sauce, I don't want a situation where I have too much sauce and it's not coating the millet I want in the way I want. So it's always better to be able to add some in than have to deal with a situation where you can't take it. Okay, so do a quick review. This is the millet. It was soaked overnight and then steamed for about half an hour. So it's already pretty much all the way cooked, if not all the way cooked. And that way we don't have to worry about it getting overcooked in the sauce, or having to overcook the sauce just to make sure the millet's cooked all the way. So I'm going to go ahead and toss that in. And I want to make sure I break up these clumps. And I'll add a little bit of water to help mix things around. Let me get a smaller thing to pour water on. It can be a little difficult sometimes using like the full pitcher to pour water, and you end up always getting kind of a larger amount than you wanted. There's a little bit of coffee grounds in my water, but we'll live with that. And pretty much what I want is for this tomato sauce to pretty much just coat the millet. And I'm going to take this temperature down because we don't need to fry it so much. Start adding our sauce back in. And it's looking like we made a really good amount of sauce to match this. So that's good. Add just a little bit more water so we're not frying all of our millet there on the bottom. A little bit of crispiness on the bottom is not bad. That's actually probably pretty close to a traditional way to do it. And a lot of times you would traditionally cook the millet inside the tomato sauce, but from what I know about cooking is I can get more control over how this dish comes together and get more consistency by going ahead and steaming the millet first. Alright, so that came out really nice. I'm going to add some water and just let it simmer for a minute or two until we get back to this kind of consistency, but that will help it all come together a little nicer. And this is the salty basi. This is the first of our 3 dishes for today. And it'll sort of be our starch on the bottom when we plate them all together. Okay, so that's that. And this one I'm going to be transferring over to a container because I'm going to want to use this pan again. Move this out of the way. Oh, you know what? I forgot part of this. This dish also gets these dates. So I'm going to chop up some dates and mix them in. That's another traditional part of this dish that I forgot to mention. Dates, if you guys aren't familiar, are these sugary fruit that grows on palm trees. And they're a good natural source of sugar. They'll provide a sweet sort of contrast to the rest of what's going on in there. So I'm just going to give them a quick chop and I'll stir them in, and then that one will be done. This is why you always gotta get a quick second look at the and that'll probably be enough for this amount. So just gonna give these a quick chop through. Almost forgot that part, you guys. Then I would have had to watch this VOD later and be like, oh, I said dates. I didn't. Just be fucked up. Mistakes were made. Yeah, let's do this last one. Yeah, so these are basically like little sugary bits of fruit that they dry out. I don't think anybody eats fresh dates. I think they're like almost exclusively dried out. These ones are nice. They're not, there's definitely different types of dates that are sweeter. But that's not always what you want, is like the most sweet dates. Sometimes it's nicer if it's just a little more earthy, not so sweet. Okay, so that is the salty basi. Let's take a little taste, and then we can see if it wants some salt. Yeah, I'm going to come in with just a little bit of salt here. Make sure we season every part of the meal. Okay, so the next part we're going to fry both our fish and our fish cakes. The large fish I'm not actually going to fry all the way. I'm just looking for a crispy exterior. And then I'm going to make the sauce for the other part of the dish, and then we'll simmer the fish in that sauce to finish cooking. Alright, so that is my salty basi. And then I have my lid ready here. There shouldn't really be a risk of fire, especially with this type of stove, but anytime you have hot oil, always have a way to cut off the oxygen, because that is how you put out an oil fire. If you put water on it, it'll splash, it'll spread. It'll be a really bad time for everybody. And I I had to take a whole firefighting class about that in college, so learn from my professional knowledge. So take a quick look. You can see that side is browning up, but we're going to let it go even further. And while that fries, how are you guys doing? We've got, let's see, Plague in here, a date night in is in. Clear just went to bed. And Radical 3D1. You guys have all been in here today and talked to me. And we're having a really great stream. So any questions you guys have along the way, any comments you have, any jokes you want to crack, this is a great time to do it while I am frying fish. Alright, so we got some nice color coming up on this. I'm going to let it go even longer than that, because we want like a really nice crispy exterior. This is like the perfect kind of dish to put on Instagram, where you can be like, oh, look at me, I cook fancy, here's my whole fish. I keep looking at the computer instead of the camera every time that I'm trying to talk to the audience. That's not great. Alright. Alright, so look at that. That is pretty. Oh, damn. So we have Epperly NS year round. New follows, thank you guys. I don't have my my streaming thing set up to play little sounds and stuff while I stream. So sorry if I miss you guys at the time, but I do appreciate the follows. Alright, so we got this really nice crispy skin on our fish. And the second side we really won't cook as much, just because one of our side is going to be down in the sauce that we cook it in the bread with. Or frying anything is to start putting your stuff down in a clockwise manner, so that when you start flipping it, you can also flip it in the same direction and have things take about the same amount of time. And it's just a good way to move efficiently while you cook. So this one will probably take the longest since we made it a different shape. Just to try it out, see how it goes. And I'll be using a little palette knife and a spoon to flip these. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to get under it with one of them and use the other one just to control it nicely. And that's a bit early for a flip. We want it to be more brown. In fact, we'll take the heat up just a little bit. Now that we're back under that smoke point. But that'll be an example of just how we rotate it and work with it. Let's get a look at this one. Okay, it's not bad, but I'm gonna go ahead and flip it back over and start getting that oil hotter so we can get a nice color on all these, since they will cook just fine. Alright, and the good news is these aren't breaking apart. What we said was if they did break apart, the next time we would make it is we would actually blend a little bit of the fish meat to make a glue to sort of hold together the rest. But we're not having any problems with that. So the way we chopped it is looking just fine. Some of these are a little more crispy than others. That's alright. Alright guys, we're almost done with today's food. One thing you can do with cooking fish or other things with oil is to just tilt it so you get it cool at the bottom and start throwing it over. And that's a nice way to kind of simulate what deep fat frying would kind of be like without actually deep frying anything. And you can get a little more color on top. There's a couple different names for this technique. The one I'm familiar with is poole or poule. I forget exactly how that's said. But, you know, more than one people have come up with this, so it has different names. Alright, this is going to be the final dish and kind of the star of the show. Alright, so we're putting our peanut mixture in there with the peanuts and the spices, and we'll even toast it a little bit before we add some water. Ah, that smells incredible. Okay, so water, and I'll start stirring this till it comes together into a sauce. And we'll even take up the heat so some of that water can start to boil off once it starts to come together. There we go. Starting to get some bubbles. There we go. Tasting spoon. This will of course need salt. We haven't put salt in it yet so that we can adjust it when it's in the pan. And I'll add just a bit of salt now because when you have no salt in it at all, it's pretty hard to taste what's going on with the flavors, how much you need to adjust it. So even a little bit of salt really helps out with that. Just clean my hand there. Alright, there we go. Now we're starting to get that sort of thicker peanut sauce. I'm going to take that heat down. So I've got the starches, the proteins, and the fat in the peanut that are kind of surrounding the water molecules and giving us a nice kind of thickness, which is rad. Alright, I'm gonna go just a touch more salt there. But it's pretty close. We'll do a little salt bay. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I'm going to take the temperature down to a simmer. Place the whole fish in. Put the eggplant in. And then the last part of this will be some okra that we pickled on Sunday for the food science stream. So I'm going to grab a few of these okras out because it wouldn't be mafe kunja without the okra. Or I guess as they're called in that part of Africa, gumbos. Which is where we get the word gumbo. Temperature down to 1 for now. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see it as I do. So okra makes this sort of sticky texture, which is why it's originally used in gumbo and stuff, for that sticky texture that it makes, acts as a thickener. Some people really don't like it, and there's ways to cook okra so that it's not sticky like that. So, that's a turn off for a number of people, but there are ways around that. Frying okra is usually a pretty good way to do that. And that will simmer for just a bit. Pretty much till we get those vegetables cooked. I'll start turning over this eggplant. See, I'm about to switch. Let's get a couple more just for options. Okay, so got some lime slices. Put these off to the side for garniture. And we'll get our salty basi ready. We've got our bolete de poisson, aka fish cakes. And then the last part will be our mafe condija. Mafe condija. That's what I'm going with. May or may not be right. And last, I will grab a few pieces of parsley to complete our garnishing. Because if you went to all this work cooking it, you may as well make it real fancy. And then we'll put away our knives at the end. Okay, so I will check on these, make sure they're cooking pretty well. We don't want raw eggplants. Everything else looks like it's cooked wonderfully, so those will be the last ones. Alright, so just a few more minutes for that to simmer, and we've got everything else ready to go. So we're getting to the end of our cooking session. Welcome back, Plague. You are here just in time. Right now we're just simmering our fish in the mafe condija sauce with our eggplant, our pickled okra that we made on Sunday. And we're just waiting for the eggplant to soften up in the sauce just a little bit more. And that'll be that. In fact, okay, let's do plating. Alright, time for plating. We move over here. I'm going to use a flat black plate for today, which should give everything kind of a nice look. And we'll plate in probably a pretty classic style. We're not going to go for anything real flashy today, because there's not much you need to do to make, a whole fish look good. That's already a great look when it comes to food. So when something already looks delicious, you just don't need to fuss with it too much. Alright, we've got this. This is basi salty. It is millet in a tomato sauce with dates. It comes from the northeastern part of Senegal, and it's got a lot of resemblance to the north part of Africa because it starts to get up there into the Saharan. Alright, so I want my spoons a little bit wet so that I can get kind of a nice shaped scoop here. And we'll do about 2 of those. So it's got kind of a spicy tomato sauce on it. And it's millet, which is one of the sort of indigenous grains to Africa, and it grows well in the climates there, as opposed to wheat, which they were kind of forced to start growing due to colonization, and it actually caused a lot of erosion in the parts of Africa that had to grow it. So we want to try and take a look at some of the more traditional stuff where we can. Okay, so we've got our salty basi down. Might actually want to take this further towards the edge of the plate because we're going to have our fish that's going to take up a large part of the plate. Go ahead and smooth this out so it looks nice. Tuck away little bits. And let me just touch of cleaning here. If this were a restaurant, we would need to plate it like significantly faster, but you would also have a lot more practice in a restaurant with plating everything the same way over and over again. Okay, so next I'm going to want to place down the fish since that's going to be our centerpiece here. Because anytime you have a full fish on a plate, it is the centerpiece of the dish. That's just how that works. And we'll try not to lose too much of it along the way. Now that we've simmered it after frying it, the flesh is really, really soft, so pretty much anything can pull that flesh off. So you got to be really careful when you're transferring it. You guys see this pan? We lost one of the fins on the transfer. Luckily, it was on the other side, so our plating is safe. Alright, so I've got this fish kind of working as a separation. So what I'm going to do is put my fish cakes over along this rim, and then I'll put some of my vegetables from the mafe kondoja over here and sort of over here on the edge of the fish. And then we'll pour a little bit of sauce over, but we want to keep this nice crispy texture on top. It's really aesthetic, it's nice, and it's texturally nice. So we don't want to rob ourselves of that. Alright, so I'm just gonna grab a few of these eggplants, some of these gombos, the pickled okra. Put one up here. A few more eggplant. Eggplant is never traditionally one of my favorites, but I've been learning to like it more. And one of the best meals I've ever had was like an Egyptian eggplant curry sort of thing. So it's definitely not all bad. It's just never been my favorite. Okay, so eventually we'll add some sauce, but we'll leave that towards the end because we want to see how things look together first. And we'll get a couple of these fish cakes in here. In fact, we'll go ahead and prop it up on the jaw, and let's go for 3. How's that looking? Yeah, that's looking pretty nice. I'm gonna look at it from the other side because it'd probably be served to you like this facing me. For you guys, I'll keep it facing that way. Okay, so we'll leave that one for last. Okay, so a super traditional look for Senegalese food are these rows of limes. So we're gonna go ahead and hold true to that aesthetic. Sometimes, traditional things are just nice. Not everything needs to get some innovation in. Put a little parsley down. From what I can tell, parsley shows up in Senegalese food. There's a lot of people who like to hate on parsley as a garnish, but honestly, parsley makes a very nice garnish. It's a really nice flavor to go with a number of other things. So basically, parsley does not deserve the hate it gets. I still love it. Alright, so now, last things last, we'll put down some sauce. Sauce I always like to put down either last or like second to last, because when you start fidgeting around with stuff on the plate and you already have sauce on the plate, you really start to make a mess. And in this case, it didn't need to be the last thing, especially since this is a thicker sauce. We could have put stuff on top of it. In fact, we may move some of those vegetables just so that they come out on top, but yeah, we're just going to lay some sauce down there so it's available. As people eat, they will pull through the sauce and it'll be on the food. You don't need to drown it in it. Alright, so we're just going to rotate this okra so that it's visible. Alright, so I think that is going to be our plate of Senegalese food. Cheers. Ah, smells so good. Alright, so I'm going to put that back on. Move this off so I've got some free space. And now we'll do the eating part and evaluate what we've got going on. All right, cheers everybody, we made it. We are in the very final stretch. I'll even grab this camera. We'll get a little more personal and hang out. How's that view? Yeah, okay. It's a little bit closer. Okay, so Senegalese menu. We've got it all ready here. We've got the salty bussy from northeastern Senegal. We've got the boulettes de poisson, aka fish cakes. And then finally, we've got fish in mafe. Trying to rotate this so that I'm not in the little corner frame there. Fish in mafe kondaja, which is a peanut sauce with peppers and stuff that we added some pickled okra to, that we made on Sunday. So let's dig in. Alright, so this is not very spicy, but as you chew it, you start to get some heat. The texture of the millet's nice. I could have done that a little bit better. But it's not bad altogether. If it had absorbed maybe just a little bit more liquid, it would have been a bit better, but I'm not unhappy with it. In general, cooking whole grains is a little bit difficult to like get spot on, and it just takes, it takes some practice. Most people don't cook rice well the first time they do it. I was always better at cooking rice on a stove than on a stove and then on like a rice cooker. It's not traditional, but it's especially nice when that mafe sauce gets on the millet. I'm into that, and the dates in this sauce in this millet are like really nice because you're eating, it's hot, and tomatoey and normal, and then you get that piece of a date, and it's like suddenly sweet. It refreshes your palate. All right, so let's move on to let me say it correctly this time. Boulette de poisson, which is a Senegalese either fish ball, or today we made fish cakes, so it would be easier to fry and less oil. Guys, that's really good. Like, if you made these just alone, and then, maybe the little bit of sauce. In fact, let's get some limes, since limes are a part of this meal. Let's chuck a little bit of lime juice on there. I bet that'll be even better. And to everybody who, looks like we got a few more people in here just now. To everybody who's tuning in, welcome to Anarchy Kitchen. I'm Tex. I do general food research, which includes science, history, and just figuring shit out. There's not a lot of rules to it. And this year I'm doing a bunch of research on African cuisine. Today we're in Senegal. We made these 3 dishes and plated them. We're eating them. It's delicious. And as always, we're hanging out. Alright, so these cod fish cakes, really good. Those flavors in there are great. Tasting notes, I would put a little bit more salt inside the fish cake next time, just so it has kind of a stronger flavor with those the onions and the garlic and the green onion and stuff that we put in there. I'd like those to come through a little bit more. But the texture, which is the part you really want to nail, that was on point. We did a good job with that. In fact, I'm gonna eat two before I move on, because these are really good. And my personal recommendation is squeeze lime on them. Makes them even better. Let's try it with that parsley. See, okay. Garnish should act as an accent to the flavors on the plate. So either as an accent or a contrast. So garnish is a functional element of a dish. It's not just I have parsley on there to make it look nice. It's I have it on there so it will, while I'm eating, refresh my palate, and make each bite taste like good again. Because the more you eat something, the less and less special it tastes. It's called palate fatigue. So basically what garnish is for is to take away from palate fatigue. And then to look nice second. That's my opinion of it anyways. Alright guys, moment of truth. Let's eat some fish in peanut sauce. Alright, first let's get a bite of the fish that didn't get down into the peanut sauce, just for comparison. So that's already, pretty tasty. And that ginger and lime zest and nutmeg that we rubbed on the inside is like really fragrant. I forgot to check for bones while I ate it. So it's already got a fragrance because of that stuff we rubbed on the inside. That lime in there. Alright, you guys got to watch me fuck up while eating fish. Forgot to have a second thing so I can flake the fish off. Let's use our spoon. Alright, so that fish was good on its own. Flake a bit off. Get it with this peanuts from the mafe sauce. Yeah, that really works. I am into this. The eggplants are good. Let's try this okra that we pickled. I guess I'll just get it as one whole. That's good. It's not very slimy, like just a touch of that okra texture that's like just kind of smooth. It turns some people off, but as long as there's not too much of that, I'm pretty good with it. I think I hated it as a kid though. Yeah. Alright guys, we've done good today. Senegal, good work. Congratulations on your history of making delicious food. Hey guys, I did the cardinal sin and forgot to take a picture for Instagram before I ate. So, we're gonna do the partial distraction Instagram